Hey, welcome everybody back to another episode of what we call Musky Fishing Basics. I hope you're all doing great today, and we really appreciate all the support you've given to us this season. So today, since it's getting to be that time, I'm talking about sucker rigs. This one in particular is the Shumway clip and go sucker rig. I feel like it's probably one of the easiest rigs to use. Basically, you take these two pins right here, you stick it through the nostrils of the muskie, and then you line up your two leads that come off, and that way you can deploy that sucker. One thing I like to use when I'm running suckers, some guys don't, some guys do, is I like to use a line counter the same as I would when I'm trolling. I just want to be able to control the depth, and by having a line counter I can know exactly how deep I am running in there. Not to mention, these typically have a lot louder clicker, so what I'll do is I'll back my drag off and I'll let the clicker run, and that way I'll know if somebody picks up that sucker. So without further ado, I'm going to try to grab this sucker out of this bucket here, and I'll show you how to put that rig together, and then we'll deploy this one in the water and hope I can't catch something. One thing you want to do when you grab these guys out of the bucket is you really want to make sure you got a good grasp on them, because they don't particularly like getting a sucker rig put on them. So all you do is you just open up the sucker rig, you pop one side in this nostril, you pop one side in the other nostril, and that's really all there is to it as far as your rig is concerned. So then what you do then is you can just take these hooks, these leads. I normally will scrape off a few scales on it, if you can see that on the video. I normally just scrape off a few scales, that way it makes it a little easier for you to pop that hook in there. So I pop one towards the side and the upper, that way if they grab it, they T-bone it, and then the other one I will take off the other side. I'll do the same thing. I'll just scrape off a few scales on this sucker, and then that way you can pop it right in the skin as opposed to going through the scales, because if the scales make it kind of tough to get them through there, and you just want to lightly pop it in there, because what you want is when that when that muskie comes up and grabs that sucker, you want to be able to drop that thing free. So that's about all there is to setting the sucker. Today I want to get this one down. I'm going to probably be fishing a little shallower, so I'm going to want to set my line counter at about, I'm going to say 5 to 6 feet today. So I know my leader is about 36 inches. So in this case, I really only need to let out like 2 feet of line on here. And then what I'll do is I will actually you could tie a knot over the top to keep, to control the depth on your bobber, because I have a bobber on there so that way I can let it out a little bit behind the boat. But what I do is I just took a planer board clip, and I'll just attach that planer board clip right onto there, and then I can let out some more line, and that bobber will just float freely. So then the bobber hangs out. I got a little bit of weight on there to keep that sucker in the strike zone, because sometimes if you don't put some weight on those suckers, I normally just attach a split ring right at the top of my my leader, and that way when the sucker, I can put a little weight on there, and that way that sucker is right there in the strike zone, instead of just, otherwise sometimes if you don't put a little weight on them, they'll pop back up. I just use a little keel weight and just split ring it right on there. So that's Musky Fishing Basics. That's setting a sucker. Hopefully I get a chance of catching one today. That would be awesome. Anyways, we appreciate you all watching this all season long. I know the season's getting down there and time's running out, but there's still time for us to get out and catch some muskies, so we appreciate that. If you like what we're doing and you like what we did all season long, maybe consider subscribing. It'd be awesome. So we appreciate everything you guys have done for us this year, and thank you, and we'll see you all next week.